reality. Tonight, our guest is Demian Gover. Demian's here. We are continuing our series on the universal spiritual laws, and tonight we are going to be talking about the law of supply. Last week we covered the law of thinking, and Demian, if you want to go ahead and start us off and get us going on things, I'm going to be dealing with some technical issues that I've got over here on my end on a few things. So I'm going to be trying to get some stuff up and going. So I'll be back and forth, but I'll definitely be here.
Good evening, and thanks for having me back on the show. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to our discussion tonight. So we're using Raymond Hollowell's working with the law as a kind of a framework to talk about the universal laws. If you want to hear more of a discussion on that, refer back to the first one we did about on the law of thinking. And this is the second of the universal laws in Hollowell's list, is the law of supply. And how did these laws affect our lives? First of all, the writing of any kind of description of universal law in language is, again, just symbols pointing at a larger mathematical truth. So here we are, humans living our lives, having problems that we would like solutions to. And no one ever tells us that our thinking, our beliefs, our mental and emotional states of mind are the thing that causes us to live our lives the way we do. And one of the problems that we as humans run into is we think there's not enough to go around. We think that we live in a world of scarcity and lack, which means that when humans have relationships with each other, we are fundamentally in a war of competition. And so we make sides and alliances, and we make enemies, and we think that there are some things to fight for and some things to defend against, and this is the way we live our lives. Is any of this true? Where does it come from? Where does our experience come from, and where do our beliefs and attitudes come from? If anyone will be really, really honest with themselves, the attitudes that you're walking around with now, violently defending, be willing to bet most of them, they're not even yours.
Right.
You probably inherited them.
Stuff that's been handed down through your family from generation to generation,
Family, from your culture,
Yep.
Your society. I guarantee you that if you had been born into a different culture, you would have very different attitudes and beliefs than you have right now, and you would defend them just as vigorously.
Right.
What is the law of supply? The law of supply tells us that everything is already there, that anything is possible, and that the expression of the supply is created by the demand. We're used to hearing that phrase, supply and demand, when applied to economic theory.
Right.
We're talking
material
about
goods and stuff.
Yeah, and that's one way of thinking about supply and demand. We're talking about supply and demand in a completely different way. We're talking about supply and demand as in that everything in existence was at one time a potentiality, and everything that is a potentiality will at some place in time manifest in existence, because the structure of existence is mathematical. infinite. The nature of energy and matter is just that of infinite potential. And we can pluck, we can pick and choose experience out of that infinite potential. But if we can't imagine it and we can't believe it, we're not gonna. So here we are walking around with all of our human problems, and we believe very indignantly complaining about all of those problems. And no one tells us that the solutions to our problems are not when those other people over there stop doing those things. The solutions to our problems manifest when we put ourselves in a different frame of mind.
Right. So,
and this is usually where I ask people, what do you want?
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea, like I was listening to the chapter again on audiobook this afternoon as I was prepping things for tonight and getting some stuff together. And the way that in there he keeps mentioning goods, because he's using goods as a general overall term. But he's also talking about good as in like the greater good, the amount of good that a person can do in the world, and the amount of stuff that they can put out in that nature. And
fractals.
huh?
It's all fractals.
Yes. Yes.
Some things manifest in the material, some things manifest in larger levels, but they're small, gross things
Right.
are manifest in the same way in larger and larger things.
Right.
Ideas up here and material possessions are down here, but they all come from the same place in the same way.
Right. Right. And so he was just using the overall term goods in relation to everything that can be supplied, on all the different levels and stuff. And it is one of those things that as I was sitting there listening to it, I mean, it clearly talks about there is no lack of enough. There is abundance for everyone.
Isn't that what we tell each other? It's just never enough for you, is it?
Yeah.
It's always got to be more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like
that's a spiritual principle,
right? It's well, you gotta put in more to get more. You gotta dive deeper. You gotta go. Well, if you have all this, and who's gonna get? Where's there gonna be anything left for anyone else?
So you just need to be satisfied with what you have right now.
Right. No.
Okay, I'm satisfied that right now I've got some chicken in the fridge. And if I was just satisfied with that and didn't do anything, well, I wouldn't even eat it. It would just sit there and rot.
Right. You just have chicken in the fridge until
what is in existence is meant to be used. It's meant to be experienced. It's meant to be felt emotionally, good or bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, well, another thing, we touched on this several points. You just said good or bad. What we sometimes don't look at is when we get these bad things going on in our lives and stuff, like we have sadness and we have sorrow and we have all this. Oops, I guess I didn't mute the phone. I guess those things, when we experience those, we don't necessarily want to experience those in abundance, but we do need to experience them because that allows us to appreciate the good and the positive when we do receive it. And so if someone's not, like, if they're just stuck on, oh, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, oh, this is negative, woe is me,
And wish it away.
yeah. And all they're going to receive is that negative, and even when they do receive something of a positive nature, if and when that happens, they're more than likely going to be like, oh, well, this isn't what I wanted, or this isn't exactly what I needed, or this isn't good enough.
It didn't happen the way I wanted it.
Yeah. It's, oh, well, if only it would have been this, or if only it would have been that.
I didn't want my Aunt Linda to die and leave me this huge inheritance. I just wanted to win the lottery.
Right. No,
but
get my
we
phone
don't
shut off.
We don't get to choose those things. We don't get to choose how things are presented to us.
No. But yeah, so as far as like some of the things that I see with the law of supply and stuff is, I mean, it also ties in deeply into the law of attraction and stuff. And if you look at the things like The Secret, where it talks about, it talks about calling things into you and gaining the attraction, like attracting things to you. But the law of supply goes right hand in hand with that, because if you don't think that that supply is out there for what it is that you're trying to call into you, you're never going to be able to do so.
And because it's already waiting there.
Right.
And when the Secret, the movie and the book, The Secret, really popularized the law of attraction, and so all of a sudden you get people just really latching onto that idea and kind of throwing some really superstitious ideas out there along the lines of increasing the power of attraction, increasing the strength of attraction to this object, and in the sense of giving people the idea that that they're somehow making that magnet stronger,
right,
or something. And it's a really superstitious idea, when really what they're doing is they're changing the direction they're pointing the magnet. They're changing what they're pointing the magnet at. They're changing what pole they're pointing the magnet at. The magnet never changes.
Right.
We're always, I've said this before. This is a faucet you can't shut off. You can only control the hot and cold. But when we're talking about the universal laws that we use in states of mind and consciousness, we have infinite potential. We have infinite things that we could imagine, and the only reason we're not experiencing them is because we're not able to imagine them.
That, or we do imagine them, but then we block it with the wrong kind of thinking. And like, I honestly got called out on this not too long ago by a guest that I have coming up on the show. Her name is Mary Gooseman, and I'm just gonna put this out there that Mary called me out on this.
Sure.
We was having discussion. There's some training I want to do with Mary, and it's got a bit of a price tag to it for this training and stuff and certifications I'm wanting to do with her. But it's well worth what you get out of it, at least in my opinion, from what I've seen. And I was talking to her about, well, the only thing really stopping me from doing this right now is the finances in order to start this training course with you. And she told me, she says, well, she says, during our conversation, she says, I've heard you say the only thing that's stopping me is this. The only thing that's stopping me is this. And she says, and it all comes down to finances with you. which, no, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm on disability. I don't have a lot of income. But she told me, she says that income is there waiting for you to be able to take care of the things that you need to take care of. You just have to open yourself to being able to receive what is waiting. And in that, she even went on to mention that I more than likely have some trauma in and around finances, which I do. And holding on to that and not healing through that is what's keeping that supply from being able to flow through into me.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really good place to start for several different reasons. One, there's a lot of people out there who have opinions that any discussion about money must not have anything to do with spirituality, because spiritual people don't talk about money. That's absurd.
The spiritual people need to eat too.
Absolute rubbish. And second, it's the whatever the economy is at the time. Right now we use this fiat currency. Has no paper money, has no value, but it's the currency of the time.
Right.
Uh, we have these things in our culture called dollars, and sometimes it's not even paper money. It's just um, digits in a digital world.
Right.
But I'm sorry, when I take that card and I put it in the, at the gas station, it pumps out gas. When I go to the grocery store and I swipe that card, they let me walk out of the store with food.
Yeah.
So it currency is whatever currency is at the time. We talked about before there was such a thing as paper money. People traded live chickens for goods and services.
Right.
I've got no use for live chickens now. I can circulate this these dollars in whatever form in this economy. And we have it in our head that there's not enough to go around. We have it in our head that if I take some for myself, that I'm taking away from someone else's, or if someone else gets more, then they're taking away from me, and they're taking away from everybody else. And of course, there are thieves.
Yeah.
Of course, but those are human motivations. That doesn't have anything to do with what's actually happening with the exchange of currency and goods and services. And it's interesting to hear especially when religious people talk about money, because they talk so much about how they believe in God and they believe God wants good things for them. And then when they go to do stuff, they describe all of their limitations. Oh, the devil doesn't want me to have this, or the devil's trying to get me to want these things, but no, I shouldn't have those. I don't deserve those. I didn't earn those things. We get it in our head that our income comes from our job. Income doesn't come from your job. Income comes through your job.
Right.
Comes from wherever the source of supply is. And the source of supply is that mathematical perfection waiting for potential to be expressed.
Right.
And it is found in consciousness. It is found in mind. Of course, if you're watching this on video, I'm pointing to my head and pointing to my brain. This is symbolic. When we say that some things are expressed outward and they come from within, we're being symbolic. Consciousness and mind is not in the brain. This is a manifest nervous system. that you can't point to consciousness.
Right.
You only talk about it, you can describe it symbolically, but you are, whatever it is being used for, you are using it 100% of the time, and you can't stop. You cannot stop using consciousness. It's like saying, to say that you could stop using consciousness is it's like saying you could stop math from being a thing. You can stop using the languages of math. You can stop using numbers.
Right, but math is still going to exist.
Math is still going to exist, even if there's no language for it, even if there's no numbers, even if there are no calculations. Math is still a thing.
Right.
Consciousness will always be a thing, and you will always be using it because you will always be aware. Not in this form, in some other form. For the religious people, for example, people from Judeo-Christian traditions in our neck of the woods, when they read, "What things soever ye desire when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them." What do they think that means?
If they pray for something,
So
they're going to get it.
when you pray, believe that you receive them, and ye shall have them. Believe that you receive them. Believe, 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 believe. We'll talk about their beliefs all the time, and most of the time I think people are talking about their belief systems, but they're not talking about their actual beliefs.
Right.
Their actual subconscious beliefs. If you say, "Oh no, I know I want these things. I've already decided that I want these things. I want this better job. I want this better life. I want to eat." Well, what do you believe? I believe I deserve these things, and I believe God's going to provide them. Well, the scriptures don't say believe that God will provide them sometime in the future.
Right.
It says believe that you receive them.
Right.
So in whatever language, using whatever scripture, whatever religious tradition that you want, you'll be hard pressed to find a religious tradition or spiritual doctrine that doesn't have some form of saying believe now in this present moment. Put yourself in a mental and emotional state that you are already experiencing it. But what do you think believe that you have received them means?
Well,
believe that you receive them, and you shall have them.
Yeah, it says that you receive them, not that you're going to receive them, or that you will receive them, or in 7.5 days you'll receive them.
Now.
Right.
Now. And so what that's, the technique, the method of that is to deny the evidence of your senses.
Right.
Deny the evidence of your memories and put yourself in a different mental and emotional state. And the other reason I'm glad you brought up money is because people have a lot of moral confusion about money, about how much is enough. Well, is it? Am I right to say how much money is enough for somebody else?
I mean, I don't see where it's that really should be an issue, because I mean, you see some people that have lots of money and they hoard it and they don't do a whole lot with it, but then you see someone else who has barely any money and they're sharing it around and trying to spread every little bit of wealth and happiness and everything as they can. So who's to say, who's right, who's wrong, what's good, what's bad, and all that? I mean, maybe the guy that's hoarding it is hoarding it because he was broke and he's trying to make sure that his future generations have.
I mean, I know what it's like to be poor. I know it's what it's like to grow out without stuff. With growing up without things like, not just, we didn't just not have cable TV. We didn't have air conditioning. We didn't have running water. I know what it's like to grow up without stuff. Um, and so yeah, I put myself in a mental state that I'm just not going to experience that again.
Right.
I had to spend a couple of decades of going through that. How do I get myself out of the state of fearing that again? And yeah, took quite a while to get over that fear of loss. Because I eventually realized that it's that fear of loss that perpetuates that experience.
Right.
So hard to let that go and replace that with something else.
Right. Well, it's like for me, this place that I'm in, it's my house. But previous to getting this place, I was renting, and I had went through instances where landlords would end up putting me out, and I'd be out homeless. I experienced that a couple of different times through a couple of different situations, and it was not because I lacked the means to pay for, rent or whatnot. It was due to just one circumstance or another, on the landlord's part, that they would decide they no longer wanted me in there paying for something. Like one of the instances was, I was renting a room in a house. The landlord lived in the house. One of his guests was stealing stuff from me, and when I brought it up, he told me, instead of addressing the person that was stealing stuff, he told me to get out. So, that's ended up what happening was, I took my stuff and left, and but I got to the point to where every time I rented a place, I was worried when that landlord was going to give me the boot and kick me out.
Now, did that have anything to do with any of the landlords? No, I should say this. Did that have anything to do with all of the landlords' motivations?
No.
To come back.
There was probably several landlords, if I'd still been in those areas where they were at the time, that would have, because I'd kind of moved around and stuff too. Some of the landlords I had in the past would have probably gladly taken me back. One of those renters that pays the rent, first of the month and stuff, takes care of things, doesn't have a lot of people over, doesn't throw any wild crazy parties unless it's with the dog.
But any amount of knowledge of that get rid of all the trauma that's done in your heart and that set up all of those habits of expectation of thinking that you have to be defensive and on your guard.
Mm-hmm. And that's what eventually led me to getting this place. Was I decided I didn't want to live like that. I didn't want to live where I was dependent upon the whims of someone else, whatever, they thought or they decided. I was at their control. So the next best thing, home ownership.
Yes. And so all of those, all those crappy situations that you find yourself in, the lesson from that is don't put your faith in people. Put your faith in human beings. It doesn't mean that not everyone is trustworthy.
Right.
It's just, if that's where you put your faith, you're gonna find some people who crush you.
Right. And it wasn't
your source of supply comes from.
Right. And I was gonna say, in going into the whole thing of supply and stuff, it wasn't that there was a lack of housing. It was that I had a lack of housing. And it was a matter of me opening myself up and putting myself into the position where I could receive what I needed to, and that was this place. It took some work to get it, but this is my place. It's my home. And, I don't have to worry about it. I've got the means to take care of it and to pay for it and, maintain everything for the most part. and, but it was when I changed my thinking from a fearful stance of, oh man, if I rent from another landlord, I'm going to end up homeless, or I'm going to end up in another bad landlord situation. Because I had my last one before here was a real doozy, but we won't go into that. And it was an ordeal, and it was one of those things that also kind of set a point that I said, I'm done playing these games, and it's time for me to get what I need. And when I changed from that kind of a woe is me type attitude of, man, I got this bad landlord, and started changing my mindset over to, you know what, I'm just going to look for the place that I need and that I deserve, that I deserve to call my home, and to find that, because I know it was out there. And the funny enough is, the place that I've got is a building in my hometown that I have seen the outside of this building for years and years and years, and had never ever been inside of it. But I knew it was an old business. It used to be a doctor's office and an insurance office and everything else. And the room that I'm sitting in right now would be the lobby. This is my living room. And I always thought this would be just the coolest little place to turn into a house. And here I am now living in it.
See what imagination.
Yeah.
For life.
Yeah, and this is a place that I had thought for years and years and years, even before I was even interested in looking for a place to move into. I'd always thought, oh man, that little building right there would be such a cool little house. It'd be such a neat little, just kind of weird, funky house. Because I knew that it had been a doctor's office, and it had that same layout, like this door right back over here, right there. You can see my finger pointing towards it, kinda. That's the hallway. It goes down the hall. There's the reception areas, right here, which is turned into the kitchen, so it's got a nice counter and bar there. And then you go back, and there's what would have been the waiting rooms, are the different bedrooms and storage rooms and stuff. And so it's just a neat little cool place, and I totally dig it. And it's one of those things that, looking back, for years and years and years, I had thought about this place. And then this is where I ended up.
And so, and I hope people catch that. You thought about it.
Yeah.
You thought about it. You thought about it, and you thought about it. But here's the thing. You mentioned earlier about the circumstances, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who are listening to this right now who are going to say, no, wait a minute. Thinking does not change circumstances. There's things that you have to do, and other people have to change, and situations have to line up to allow things to change. And so, well, let's just start with, people are like, you can't just think things. You have to get up off your ass and do things. Well, here's the thing. Every time that your physical body has ever gotten up and do something, every time that you've applied for employment, every time that you've hustled and to earn a little extra money, what was the order of operations that things occurred? Did you say, okay, well, I need stuff, and and I'm in trouble. And then your physical body just gets up and goes and applies for a job, and then you get a paycheck, and then you breathe a sigh of relief and so, whew, okay, finally got some income coming in. What was the order of operations there?
You got to start with
Didn't
the
you
thinking.
didn't the order of operations occur that you had a problem first and you recognized that problem? You had an emotional feeling about the problem, and then you had an emotional feeling about what you were going to do to solve that problem. Then, after you made the decision, you had to think about where you were going to apply, where you were going to look for work. You did a bunch of mental and emotional work before your physical body got up and filled out that job application.
Right.
Think about the order of operations of what's actually going on here. No, you don't just sit in meditation and nice people come in and start shoveling food into your mouth and wiping your butt. No, that doesn't happen.
I think if that happened, it'd probably scare me.
I say that's not going to happen, but I tell you what, actually, if you were to do that, eventually somebody's going to put you in a nice little nursing home,
Oh, that's
and
true.
you probably are going to find somebody spooning tapioca in your mouth and wiping your butt. So I say that, but that might not necessarily be true. But your physical body getting up, going to work, earning a paycheck, it all begins at the level of an emotional thought.
Right.
That's where it started. It started with you changing your mind about your circumstances. And there are
Give me your dinner.
story after story of people putting themselves in a different emotional state of mind, and people offering them jobs that they didn't apply for,
Right.
bringing them stuff that they didn't ask for. And what is hilariously funny, it's not really funny, it's sad, really, is that people will tell stories about, oh yeah, I was down on my luck, I was having a hard time, and I didn't tell anybody, and somebody came and they tried to give me stuff, and they didn't even know that I needed it that bad, but people tried to give me stuff and I wouldn't take it, because I didn't earn it. This is what the mentality that the economy is a real thing has done to people. It has made them think it's better to go out and steal a loaf of bread than for someone to show up and just give you one.
Right.
Because at least if you went out and stole it, at least you made that decision to do it yourself.
You quote unquote earned it and
Right.
in your efforts.
Right. Because it was your effort. That is what economic theory has done to destroy and warp people's mentality about where their supply comes from.
Right.
I'm a minister of a church, so I'll say your supply comes from God because I'm comfortable using that word. A lot of people aren't comfortable using that word because they've been to church and they've had some bad experiences with. So if they talk spiritually, they'll say the source or the Great Spirit or however they want to say it.
Right.
I'm just saying that source, that mathematically perfect source of creation, is where all supply comes from. 100% of everything that you can or ever will experience comes from that source. That source is in your own consciousness. For a quote from Raymond Hollowell's Working with the Law, it says, "The secret of the law lies in one's consciousness. A man's life consists not in the abundance of the things he possesses, but in the consciousness of that which he has." So, yeah, you need food, you need a house, you need transportation, you need clothes on your back
Right.
to protect you from the elements. And you know, and scriptures say the Lord knows you have needs of these things. Your heavenly Father knows what you need. You
Right.
don't have to tell him, but you do have to tell yourself and be honest with what you want. Otherwise, also says a double-minded man need not ask for anything. So if, on the one hand you have want, and the other hand you have doubt, which of those things do you think you're going to internalize?
Right.
The consciousness of the state. The possessions come and go. The physicality of the objects themselves come and go, but the source of supply, replaces everything, and it will replace it in an ever expanding way. Eventually,
Right.
in your human experience, that level of possession will go up and down.
Right. I want to go back to something that you said there just a couple of seconds ago. You was talking about being of a, like, having that dual mind where it's, oh well, I need this. Say I need $75 to pay the electric bill. I doubt I'm going to get $75 to pay the electric bill. You're not going to end up with $75 to pay the electric bill. That doesn't mean that $75 isn't out there. It's just you've went ahead and put yourself in a spot to take you out of being able to receive that because of your thinking. You have already put yourself in a manner to where you're not allowing yourself to open up for that abundance. And I want to share something that I done just recently, and it's something that impacts the show. And it's dealing with the show. I recently put out a more or less an ad, looking for guests to be on the show, because I was kind of starting to tap my pool of people that I knew. Some people weren't available just because of scheduling things and things being a little more different and difficult with the current state of the world right now and stuff, and having to do more childcare than what they would figure because of schooling issues and stuff and things. So some of the guests that I was looking at having on wasn't able to come on. Oh, Tanner! That was me bumping something, and now he thinks someone's at the door. But I went ahead and I put together a little thing that says, hey, I'm doing this podcast. If you're interested in being on it, either send me a message or reply to this post. And I posted around Facebook a few places. And I thought, no, okay, I'll get a couple of people interested, and I'll get a couple new guests for the show. I have spent the last probably 4 or 5 days since I posted that ad taking either messages or calls or something pretty much most of the day of people that are interested in being on the show. And now I was only booked out 1 day a week on Mondays. Now I have every Monday and Wednesday except for one all the way through March booked. With March 17th, I'm actually doing pretty much a big long marathon that day. And then in April, I'm changing the days of the stream from Mondays and Wednesdays to Tuesdays and Thursdays. But we're going to continue on with that. And then something else I don't think I even told you about yet, Demian, is I'm adding in a Friday night stream. And probably one of the reasons I hadn't mentioned this to you is I know you're almost always busy on Friday nights.
Yeah, at least 2 Fridays out of the month I'm working.
Yeah, I figured if not all of them, at least I knew 2 of them that you were. But I am going to start doing what's called a Friday night forum, where myself and a few other guests will get together. We won't do this with video; it will just be audio because it'd be too crazy to try to get like 10 people's cameras up here, or however many people that we're gonna get into the group. I don't want to do more than 10. But it's just going to be kind of a roundtable forum that is just an open discussion on the a subject that's picked for that week's topic, and it will be part of the podcast series, but it will just kind of be more of a roundtable discussion, not so much an interview ordeal. And so I went from doing one show to 3 shows. And now I'm at the point where I'm getting new artwork done. That will be coming in on March 3rd.
So you're set up to be the next Larry King.
Well, I mean, Larry left the void, so someone's got to step in, right?
Yeah.
So there we go. But yeah, I mean, this is one of those things, because I've been looking at ways to start to get things flowing and going, and this, by the nature that it is, could end up leading into some of the things that I'm wanting to do, or if at the very least it's opening up opportunities into other areas that I hadn't thought about as well. With the new logos and stuff being designed, there will be Breaking Reality merchandise coming real soon.
Awesome.
So if you want that Breaking Reality hat or a t-shirt or sticker, we'll be putting those together before too long.
Right on.
But yeah, but my main point from that was, it wasn't that there was a lack of people to be on the show. I just hadn't tapped into that.
Yeah.
And the second I tapped into it, the floodgates opened. And it's actually been, it actually got a little overwhelming one day. I'm just like, I have too many people that are wanting to talk to me all at the same time. It's just, how do you handle having more people that want to talk to you than you do hours in a day?
First world problems.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a good thing though too, because it leads to more opportunities with the show, with having different guests on, bringing in new and different subjects and new and different perspectives on some of the same subjects as well.
Scriptures promise us that our cup will runneth over.
Oh, it definitely is right now.
If we don't believe that, trust me, I'm not saying that it's our fault. It's not our fault that we don't believe. Who taught you?
Right.
Who taught you that? Who taught you that what you experience in your material world is based on what you believe in your heart? And I mean, people talk about things like that, but and people will say, "Oh yeah, I can see where sometimes that happens." Sometimes, how do you think things work? I mean, that's like saying, sometimes I'll look in a mirror and it reflects my face back to me, but sometimes I don't know whose face that is in the mirror. It's absurd.
Right.
The mental and emotional state that we're in determines how we live our life. And
yeah.
One of the problems is we just obsess about how other people are living their lives, and we're like, well, what about them? Oh, and so that begs the question of how do we morally use these laws? How do you morally use the law of supply? Well, first, I would say demonstrate its use. Demonstrate all of these things to yourself
Right.
first. Demonstrate its use. Show how it is used. And second, when it's possible, when it's appropriate, teach its use.
Right.
Especially when people are asking for help. There's nothing. I don't think there's anything more powerful and more moral than teaching people how their own mind works.
Oh no, I think that's an amazing path to be going down.
I, I know it sounds like it's a little bit of a crass way to say it. One of my favorite preachers is the late Reverend Ike. Um, Look him up. All kinds of videos on YouTube. But he said, if you want to help people, if you want to help people that are struggling, you're not going to be any help to them at all if you're one of those people who is struggling as well.
Right.
And he will just come flat out and say, if you want to help poor people, the best thing you can do is not be one of them.
Right.
And I know that sounds kind of a crass kind of thing to say, but think about it.
It's not really, though. I mean, it's honest.
How do you want to help people?
I mean,
it was the Greek philosopher Horace who said, you can't give someone else what you yourself don't have.
Right. Right. So if you're wanting to feed the masses, yet you can't even feed yourself, where are you going to get the means to feed? Huh?
You want to help people find peace.
Right.
You want to help people find happiness.
If you don't have peace and happiness yourself, how do you know how to let others get there?
And over experience, growth is inevitable. Expansion is mathematically inevitable. Our experience is going to pull us back and forth, and at any given time, we may feel like we're going backwards. We might feel like we're not expanding much at all. But the ultimate trajectory is always in the direction of expansion, because there's an urge for more. And a lot of people think there's a moral problem with desire itself, that we're not supposed to want anything. And I think they've misunderstood a lot of the spiritual injunctions that say, no, your problem is not desire. Your problem is attachment to desire.
Right.
The problem is not that you want stuff. The problem is that you won't put yourself in the mental and emotional state of already having it.
Yeah, see, I think that's where a lot of people confuse Buddhism. Some of the aspects of Buddhism and stuff is they think that it talks about, you should want nothing. It's
have no desires.
Huh?
Have no desires.
Right.
About the desire for air.
I mean, you kind of got to have that.
Hold your breath for a couple of minutes, then tell me about desire.
Right.
Tell me that you shouldn't want to breathe.
Right.
You'll find out real quick how absurd and ridiculous that idea is.
Right. I mean, there's certain basic needs. You need water, Let your body start to go into dehydration and see how quickly you're going to be wanting to take in fluids when you get the opportunity.
Water is your friend.
I have no idea. This whole show, Tanner's just been keep popping up in a frame behind me and just staring at me. I have no idea what he's wanting.
Got some curious energy.
I think he's just wanting food. That or he's wanting to go back to the bedroom. He's very demanding these days.
Down.
Huh?
He is staring you down.
Yes, he most definitely is staring me down right now.
He looks like he's staring me down.
He might.
Don't think.
But yeah,
But
he's
yeah, to the urge to increase, the
mhm.
urge to advance, natural.
Yeah. Well, you got to talking. You mentioned on morality there, and how to use these morally right, and I believe it's actually the next law that we're going to be doing is the law of attraction. I thought it came next on the list, and
Yes,
that's the one that you hear a lot of people talk about and stuff, and I mean, out of all the laws, it's probably the one that's got the most hype because of the Secret, the book and the movie, and some other stuff. And
it out loud compared to some of the other laws. It's kind of the one that immediately makes the most sense.
right, and I've seen a lot of in my past the name it claim it kind of churches
Sure.
where whatever you name and claim in the name of God, you're going to get and you're going to receive. And where I see like some of the moral lines with some of that is I see people in there trying to claim a new Mercedes Benz when they need to be claiming, just being able to make sure that their family's taken care of till the end of the month.
Yeah, priorities.
Yeah,
Right?
they're in there wanting to go and jump to the top of the golden and ivory towers, and they're not even realizing what they're missing to even get those steps going.
It could be there.
Oh yeah. Oh
Do
yeah,
not
I'm not denying that,
luxury car. There's nothing wrong with the mansion.
Yeah.
But priorities, order of order of priorities, order of operations. Um, I think no, this is one of the things that you don't generally talk about because you don't talk about how much you give. You don't talk about how much money you donate or because that's usually just an expression of ego. And if that's all you're doing is bragging about how much money you give away,
Right.
that's your reward. You've received your reward. But I think a lot of people don't realize um, how much people with a lot of money um, got to be in the position of having a lot of money because they gave a lot of it away.
Right.
And that is just how the universe works, is that what you put out, that's what you get back. Not every person with money is Ebenezer Scrooge.
Right. Right. There's a bunch of great philanthropists out there that do all kinds of things to help people out, and that's what they do is they give their money, and it opens up pathways for them to receive more.
And now we live in a society where a middle class almost doesn't exist, and a couple of spiritual things happened. Is that we put our faith in men who are essentially dragons hoarding wealth in a cave, and we forgot to be good to each other. We forgot to give to each other. I grew up in a time where you didn't bother to lock your doors
Oh yeah.
because there just wasn't any need to. And somewhere since I've been alive, a culture of fear, of scarcity, and lack has just gripped our consciousness,
Well,
and we're experiencing the very painful consequences
well
of
let's
state of
look at
consciousness.
current history about this time last year, a little later, when lockdown started happening. People went out and started grabbing stuff off of the shelves, hoarding, buying all kinds of stuff because, oh God, this is going to be horrible. This is going to be evil. There's not going to be enough toilet paper. There's not going to be enough this. There's not going to be enough that. The only reason that there was not enough of anything on the shelf was because people went into a hoarding mentality and started trying to gather up as much as they could for them while creating a lack for other people. And it wasn't that there wasn't the supply there. It was just they had to get it from the warehouses back out there. And as soon as that would happen, people would come in out of fear, scoop all that up. And we went into this point of time last year for a bit where we saw groceries being scarce. We saw stuff, normally in these aisles that would be packed full in this country. Being
saw,
bare.
Stuff like canned corn, canned carrots weren't on the shelves.
Yeah.
Weren't there for like months.
But that it wasn't that we ever ran out. It was as soon as these places would order stuff in, put it on the shelf, people were buying it up. It wasn't that we had any less. It was that all of a sudden, out of fear, these people started gathering and hoarding more than they could ever possibly need.
It was going to different places.
Yeah. And it was funny because, I've seen, some of the pictures and stuff where it shows the people 3-4 months after everything, here they are back at the store with, a shopping cart filled up with, 40 things of toilet paper trying to return it. And it's because they thought that, and they didn't even take just what they needed for their family. They took,
or it expires, right?
Yeah, they took all of it they could get in the means of wanting to try to capitalize on someone else's lack and profit off of that. Is a big part of what we saw.
And so in all of that, it affects people's beliefs. And let's talk about what lack is. Lack is not a state of fact. We go through life thinking that what we're doing is accurately analyzing circumstances. And we tend to think that the more accurately we analyze the circumstances, the better we can feel about ourselves because we have this knowledge. We've picked up the information, we've accurately analyzed the information, and so we think that allows us to feel better about ourselves.
Right.
What I'm saying is lack is a belief. Lack is a belief, and what creates experience of lack is the fear of loss. Fear of loss creates the experience of lack. And the natural state of existence is infinity. Natural state of reality is infinite potential. And we pick and choose experience out of consciousness by virtue of our belief. If you don't believe that, change your beliefs, watch your experience of life change. If you and trust me, no one will change your mind for you. You're welcome to your own opinions. Continue to believe the things that you believe right now and continue to watch your life stay exactly the same.
Right.
No one's going to inflict abundance on you.
I'm going to force you to accept this abundance.
That's not going to happen. We see people win the lottery all the time. We see people given huge sums of money. We see people given jobs that they weren't prepared for. and inherit fortunes, and they find themselves destitute
Yeah.
in a very short amount of time. It wasn't because they didn't have any money. It was because they only knew a poverty mindset, and they had no cells of recognition or responsible use of resources.
Right.
It wasn't their fault. Who taught them? Who taught them how to use money wisely? No one taught me. I mean, my parents taught me scarcity and lack, and taught me to hoard money, and to save, and to penny pinch, and to clip coupons, and do price comparisons, and shop, and look at watch which gas station had the lowest gas prices,
Yep.
and they taught me to complain about the utilities and to dread the bills. And so yeah, I went through a couple of decades of my life like that, and I tell you what, it sucks.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that, like, all right, my electric bill was $100 last month. A little more expensive than normal. It was a colder month than normal. Um, but also at the same time, I had a warm house.
Don't you love the heat? I mean,
Exactly.
I changed my mind from dreading the bills to seeing the bills in the mailbox, and now half of them are online now. Half of them I don't even get a bill in the mail anymore. For you, really young kids out there, yeah, we used to get paper bills in the mail. There was no such thing as the internet or paying online. That didn't exist. How did you live? Uh, oh, it was a hard, rugged
If
existence.
you want to do a
Of
rapid bill pay, you found one of the authorized bill paying locations, and you went in there and you made a payment there.
Because it
And
was a little bit closer than the utility company.
right, right. It's like your local big shopping, like grocery store, their service center. You might be able to pay your utility bill or your light bill or your gas bill or something along those lines.
Now I have to remind myself to always be appreciative, to go through life in a state of being appreciative. Now, I practically jump for joy when the bills come in the mail, because I love the heat.
Oh
Look at
yeah.
me, guys. I'm a ginger. I'm a pasty white guy. I do not do well in the sun. I love air conditioning. Um, and I appreciate food. I appreciate all of these modern conveniences that we
Oh yeah.
have. I remember what it was like to have an emergency and try to find some place, or try to find a house, or try to find where somebody was broken down when cell phones didn't exist.
Oh God, yeah.
You
Like,
know,
honestly, something that just happened to me recently was not this past weekend, but the weekend before. I had to replace my water heater out of the blue on a Sunday afternoon. Walked in the back room, didn't realize it because I hadn't been back there in a while. Stepped back there, I'm like, man, this carpet is wet. Why is this carpet wet? Got to looking around, water heater had a leak. Ended up $600 later. Now the proud owner of a new water heater. It's been nicely professionally installed. But, I was able to get a hold of my dad. He has a handyman that he deals with for all this stuff. The guy's licensed and certified to do all this work and stuff. Dad calls him up. He has his handy dandy cell phone out there with him on Sunday afternoon. He says, yeah, I'm in the area. I'll come over as soon as I finish this job. Won't take me but a couple hours to get it done. And came over and took care of this job. And I've got it taken care of. Now, I could sit around and be like, oh man, that's $600 out of my pocket. That's $600 out of my income. How in the world am I going to deal with this? That was an expense I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting to have to pay for a new water heater. But at the same time, I look at it, I go, okay, well, my water heater's been replaced now. I got a new water heater. It's under warranty. I don't have to worry about anything with it for a while. The heat pump and the furnace in this place are both fairly new, and so is the roof. And so those are like your really big major repair deals that usually goes on with a house are all taken care of right now. So I shouldn't have to worry about any of those for a while. Unless something just really weird happens. But, I look at it as, okay, well, I was in a situation to where I could get that taken care of and I could get that done. And I'm going to be able to get it all paid off and taken care of. And it's not going to put me in a point where I'm going to be just, okay, it's either water heater or food, type situation.
So, guys, if you put yourself in a state of expectation that things are going to work out, and when they do, you got to feel good about it twice.
Oh yeah.
Worry about stuff, and then it goes wrong. You got to suffer twice.
Right.
Guys, for you younger folks who are watching, when if it wasn't too long ago that you started driving, right, and you guys ever had a flat tire or broken down on the side of the road in the middle of the interstate and there's nobody out there, guys, before there were cell phones, people used to die of heat stroke. People used to freeze to death on the side of the road because their car broke down and they had to try to walk miles to find a gas station or any kind of civilization, and they just died because they were exposed to the elements. Now you've got your cell phone, and you just call AAA or whatever. I love those things. I appreciate those things so much now. And I know there's a lot of irresponsible misuse of everything, but it's up to me as an individual to learn how to responsibly use those things and to demonstrate that responsible use and help other people understand how to use those things responsibly. There is no real lack. Matter is constantly being recycled.
Right.
Energy is constantly changing form. And every demand creates a supply.
Right.
There's no demand for it. If you don't expect it, it won't be there. It'll be there in potential, but you won't experience it in your life. Because every fear creates the experience of lack. Demand creates supply. Fear creates lack. This is the laws of the universe, folks. And you cannot demand what you can't imagine.
Right.
You can't believe it if all you're going to do is trust the evidence of your senses and your memories.
There's got to be a point to step out with that faith and just believe that this is coming, that this is happening, that this abundance is not coming, but it is here. It is waiting for you to open and accept it and to receive it.
In the present moment.
Yeah. And like you said, I do believe that you do have to put some work into it and stuff. Not everything's just going to be, oh, well, I thought about this. I thought, I needed $10,000 and $10,000 magically appeared in my bank account. It could happen that way. I'm not saying it won't.
It could.
I'm not saying, crazier things have happened in life. But more than likely, what's going to happen is the universe is going to present you with an opportunity to be able to get that $10,000 one way, shape, form, or another.
In ways that you might not even expect.
Well,
and that's a good point, is stop asking how it's going to happen.
Well, I honestly, I wasn't even thinking much about the podcast as a potential means for some of these things to be happening that I need to happen. But after this last little bit, I have a feeling that most of my stuff is going to come from building the show up, promoting the show, marketing the show, and getting it to where it needs to be. I've got a whole lineup of people that are wanting to be on, that have all these amazing topics they want to talk about. Some of them, they just want to tell their story of their experience through their life and how their spiritual path and their spirituality has brought them out of hardships and turmoils through it. And I have no problems telling those kinds of stories, because we need to hear that on a daily basis. We need to hear that on a regular basis. That, yeah, stuff is tough. But you can get through it. You can get by. You can survive. And this is how I've done this. Or, a collective of people have done this and stuff, So I think those kinds of stories are important stories to be told, which is
absolutely.
I've got several of those coming up.
How you describe the mechanism, when if it's working for you, if what you're doing works, keep doing it.
Yeah.
It's my job to really describe the mechanism for how things work.
Right.
It's my job to discuss the theology and the philosophy and the metaphysics behind it. But I love hearing stories when people do things and they work, and I just get to watch it in action.
Right. Yeah, so like I was saying, when I was like over the past week, I was like, yeah, maybe this is going to be the avenue that this is going to come about through. Because I know there's abundance there waiting. I know that supply is there waiting. And it is a matter of, how was I going to tap into it? I know it's there. It is there. But how am I tapping into it was my thing. And just out of the blue, this avenue looks like this is the way I'm being pointed and being directed and stuff. And I won't lie, I'm kind of excited about the new logo designs and stuff that's coming out. I think they're going to lend for definitely some merchandise that I myself am going to purchase for myself.
Self-promote, right?
Oh yeah, definitely self-promote. I need to see if I can get a bandana with the logo like right here.
Yeah.
But yeah,
our problem is not that there's is not a lack of what is there, but it's our problem is an ignorance of how to use what is already there.
Well, I think it's a combination of ignorance of how to use what is already there, and the ignorance of like for me, I didn't know where I was going to tap into this at. And this still may not even be it. This may just be a kickoff point for something different. I'm not closing down any potentials or possibilities. Because who's to say that, you know, this doesn't lead into me talking with someone that kicks off something else that's a catalyst for something else that, opens up those doorways. So just because I'm like, oh, well, I think it's going to be through X, Y, and Z, I don't limit myself to the possibility of only X, Y, and Z.
Wonderful. Because there's always something greater. And once we've exhausted our use of whatever served us, we're meant to move on. You that's about all that I've got to talk about the law of supply without really quickly getting in, crossing over into talking about some of the other laws.
Right. I know. I kind of thought, man, we're gonna go through this law really quick because it's really
Trust me, I'm trying to pace myself.
right. We don't want to barrel through them all in one night. But
And he knows that I can talk nonstop.
well, and this law is one that, to be honest, we probably could have really covered in 45 minutes, bare minimum. Because it's a really simple concept to get. The law of supply, it's there. The supply never goes away. Everything is, one of the things that they talked about in the book was everything is energy, and energy does not cease to exist. It just transmutes forms. So, the example that they used in the book was, I believe, a tree, cutting down the tree. They started with a seed. You put the seed in the ground. The seed grows to a tree. The tree blooms. It drops more seeds. You cut that tree down. You burn that tree for. You chop it up. You burn the tree for heat. You get the heat off of it, but it leaves the ash. You take the ash. You put the ash back out onto the field where the seeds had fallen. That helps fertilize those other trees that are growing. Thus, that transfers into energy that is part of those trees that grows up and becomes, another tree that completes the whole cycle all over again. And that's really a really broken down, really, really minimalized version of the whole little thing that they broke down through in there, but nothing ever ceased to exist. Yes. Nothing ceased to exist. The only thing that can happen is it can transmute forms. Nothing can ever be taken out of existence totally, completely. So, yeah, you're sitting there going, okay, well, people die and animals die and things die. Yes, sure.
Species go extinct.
Right.
But any species that goes extinct was one branch of probably many different species that all shared a common ancestor at one point that is also now extinct.
Right. But
and life is gone.
But even then, the body of that extinct creature, breaks down and transforms into, huh?
Is feeding something.
Yes, it is feeding something, whether it is, as a fertilizer, as a fossil fuel, or something.
Conqueror worm.
Huh?
Conqueror worm.
Yes. But yes, it all just, like you said, it's a circle of life. Everything keeps going through. Nothing ever ceased to exist. So since nothing ever ceased to exist, there's not less now than what there was before. So that supply is not less.
The potential will always be infinite.
Yep.
There will always be more than enough to go around.
Yep.
And it is belief that determines where it goes. Guys,
Yeah.
that's all I've got for you this week. It's always a pleasure talking with you, brother.
Likewise, likewise. And let's see. Let me grab my handy dandy schedule here. I started getting so many people booked on the show, I had to go out and get me a little planner.
Mm-hmm.
So I can keep track. All right. On Wednesday at 7 p.m., I'm going to have Michael Bai is going to be on. And, oh, God, I'm probably going to just hack this pronunciation. But I want to say Huna is going to be the topic. From what I don't know a whole lot about it. I know it's a form of mysticism and maybe some type of magic that it was related to, and it looks like it might be Hawaiian in origin, from the Hawaiian Islands. It's pronounced H-U-N, or it's spelled H-U-N-A. And he's going to be on being a guest talking about it. It's a subject that I honestly don't know a whole lot on, so I am going to be learning right along with you guys this week. So that will be the first of the Wednesday night shows. That's going to be at 7 p.m. Show times are going to be 7 p.m. Mondays and Wednesdays all the way through the end of March. And then the Friday night forums will be at 9 p.m. on Friday nights. And those will be right here on this channel as well. So you guys are all free to come back in, join Inform. If you're a regular member of the community and you want to be part of the Friday night forum, please, by all means, go down to my Discord link below, click on that Discord link and let me know. Get active in that Discord community and stuff. I'm trying to get more people in there and build up so we can start having some discussions within just the Discord itself on different topics and stuff. There's areas in there for Q&A. Demian, if you want to come in and present weekly questions and stuff to the group in there, by all means, feel free. I know you do that a lot on the group that we belong to with the church, that you'll come in there and
Yeah, I asked a lot of questions.
often ask us questions that makes us sit there and go, okay, I read this at 7 o'clock this morning. It's going to be like 9 o'clock the next evening before I can actually get an answer down, because I had to sit and think about it for so long.
And I think I've got a couple of Mondays clear on my schedule in March.
I have, I've got you down for March 22nd and 29th.
I think that should work.
Yeah.
Look forward to it.
And then I do have one Wednesday open in March if you want to go ahead and claim it.
I better keep that open for work. I either have to either Mondays, Tuesdays, or Wednesday, Thursdays. I have to pick one or the other to do one thing or the other.
Okay, not a problem.
But enjoying being on the show, and I'm looking forward next time we'll talk about the law of attraction.
Yeah. Oh, that one's going to be one that we're going to have a lot of. We might take the full 2 hours on that one. That'll be a fun one to get into. So, all right, Demian, if you want to hang out for just a few minutes afterwards, I got a couple questions I want to ask you once we go off air. But I do want to say thank you to everyone who came out. Thank you for joining Demian and myself this evening. And as always, I will get this up onto the YouTube tomorrow evening, 24 hours afterwards. I'm just gonna start saying Tuesday nights at 9:30 is when I'll put them live. Unless for some reason a show goes past that time, then I'll push it back a little bit. But that's going to be a set time that I can set for shows going live on the YouTube for everyone to watch. And I'll post that link all up around so people can get it in all the different groups. But yeah, everybody, thank you for coming out. And like I said, Wednesday, Michael Bai will be here at 7 p.m. We're going to be discussing a topic I don't even really know much about, so it's going to be a learning point for me as well.
Hawaiian metaphysics.
Huh?
Hawaiian metaphysics.
Yep. I mean, and I'm always excited to learn on topics that I absolutely haven't got a chance to touch on yet. I mean, a lot of subjects and stuff that we've discussed are something that we've touched on at least in our own conversations beforehand. And then we bring them to the show. But this is one that I just haven't had the opportunity to cross over. And then let's see. Let me just run down. So on the 10th, that's going to be Michael. That's Wednesday. Then next Monday is going to be Ross Hamilton is going to be on, and he is going to be talking about the Great Serpent Mound located in southern Ohio. It is an ancient earthwork effigy that has, from my understandings, they asked the Shawnee tribe that settled into this area. They asked the Shawnee tribes, how long has this been here? When did you build it? And they said it was here when we settled into the region. So this is an earthwork effigy that predates the Native American settling into the Ohio Valley. On February 17th, I have Melvin Nix is going to be my guest, and we're going to be starting off a series. We're going to be starting off with what is energy, and then we are going to be covering energy as in the sense of like the chakras and that sense of energy. And we are going to be following that into a conversation about the chakras. I can only imagine that we're going to touch on Kundalini energies in there because it's kind of hard to have that conversation and not touch on it if you're going to be discussing energies and the chakras. And he definitely wants to go into discussing Reiki as well. On the 22nd, we're going to have David Cannon's going to be on. David is going to be discussing personal transformation through his own spiritual path. So we're going to have that. And then following the same topic, on the 24th, Laura Perkins is going to be on, and she's going to be discussing healing from addiction through spirituality. And it's her own personal story of how she healed through her own personal addictions using her spiritual path. And so that will wrap up February. And then I will be posting up all the shows on the Discord and on the Facebook page so everyone can see what we have coming up.
What a great way to start this year, huh?
It is getting busy, and then next month has we have all kinds of great stuff next month, from a death doula to someone talking about the inner child, to the Great Awakening, the spiritual cleansings, to the medicine wheel. I've got you on for 2 more episodes in this series, so we'll dive deeper into this. I've got someone that wants to talk about energy healing. I've got a guest that's going to be discussing frequencies, vibrations, and how that helps heal. Because of the way everything comes into alignment with frequencies and vibrations and our energetic body. And then this one is going to be a really interesting one, Demian. I have a friend who she has narcolepsy, and she is going to discuss with her narcolepsy how when she goes into these narcoleptic states where she goes under, it's not so much like sleeping. From her experiences and what she's told me, it's almost like the shamanic journey that you get when you undergo using different sacraments. And so she is going to be talking on that subject. So I'm interested to see what she has to say, because she has some experience using different psychedelics, and she says that it is more like going into a psychedelic state than it is actually going to sleep.
Wow.
So that is something I've never heard before this point. It was just conversation that we'd had, me and her. So I'm going to put this out there, and we're going to have a conversation on it on the 17th of March, actually.
Right
and
on.
We'll see how that goes.
Viewers and listeners out there, prepare to have your reality broken.
Exactly. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much, Puck. I see you there. Thank you. Thank you. I see the mana boost and all the loves. We will see you guys later, and I think I'm going to go ahead and go see what that crazy little dog behind me wants now.
All right.
Alrighty.
Good night and be blessed.